Okay, first I want to thank you guys for joining me for this presentation. As many of you know, I'm a candidate in the iLead program with Metro RESA. This is my continuous improvement project. And as I become more familiar with special education and its processes, I realized just how significant it is to focus in on our instruction for our students. And so the area of growth that I chose for this project is co-teaching. I'll just get started by kind of giving you just a little bit of back. So our school was in the beginning stages was called Headland High School. They began instruction in 1955 and completed in 1957 with Paul R. Lewis as our first principal. In October 1956, the student body was just given the task to come up with a mascot as well as colors for the school. So they chose the Headland Highlanders, and red and black was selected as the school colors. The first graduating class was in 1959 with 72 students, and then the last class of the school was in 1982, and they only had 98 students. At its peak, though, in 65, they had um, triple those numbers, which was 285 students. Headland became known for sports, music, and high academic standards, but Fulton County felt the need for change sometime around the early 70s. And so in their school consolidation plan, they decided to combine Headland High School with another school called Briarwood High School. And they called them Woodland High School. Of course, we know that Woodland High School does not exist at this time. We have Woodland Middle School. So that one changed as well. Um, Old Headland became Paul D. West, which is now home of the Panthers. These are the team members that originally made up our data team for this co-taught segment. Miss Freeland was to focus on I Ready Read. Tracy Ragland was focusing on I Ready Math. June Erskine was our SDI coach. She focused on specially designed instruction. And Miss Mitchell, Read 180. And then Mr. Gilliam, who is my mentor, is always a part of the team. Oh, wrong button. Okay, so basically our monthly meetings have been set up for the next 4 months. So we'll meet once a month, and they've already kind of been set up, but we haven't put them on the calendar yet. We just have to kind of review the dates, make sure they're okay with everyone, and then we'll move forward from there. During those monthly meetings, we will review common assessment data, discuss strategies for improvement, the impact of attendance on student progress, the impact of specially designed instruction, and then classroom observation and recommendations from myself or Dr. Erskine. So at this time, I've given you guys the data. And so we're going to use this protocol to just kind of look over what we have here. I'll go over them briefly, and then we'll talk about some recommendations or some, ideas that you guys have, or just some implications for instruction that you're seeing in this data that we have. We'll look at facts. What do we see? What does the data suggest? What does this mean for our work? And then what are we going to do about it? This is a graph of the number of students that have co-taught classes, have three or more co-taught classes, or less than three co-taught classes. This is going back 3 years. The total number of students here, we kind of about the same as they were in 2018, 2019. And then we had quite a few more students in 2019 and 2020. This is our student learning data. I already read from a co-taught class at the 7th grade level. These students, these are their diagnostic scores as well as their grade equivalency. And so what the teacher has done is to group them just based on their levels and those areas of need that they need to focus on. So group one will focus on phonics and vocabulary, group two, vocabulary and comprehension, and then group three, comprehension and phonics to fluency. I Math these students, all students' scale scores were 2 or more grade levels below. All but one student scored 2 or more grade levels below in number systems and algebra. So on this particular slide, Lexile levels suggest that students are early readers. Typical growth is the average growth student can make in an academic year. Students can meet typical growth by targeting instruction in number systems and algebra. These domains house the skills that are the heaviest weighted in the curriculum. Additionally, students' reading deficits should be considered when teaching math in the context of word problems. On this particular slide are some recommendations made by the academic math coach. Point 1, context makes math relevant and promotes understanding. Context should be at the students' reading levels. Point 2, number and operations and algebraic thinking stretch across K through 8 and are the core competencies of K through 8 math curriculum. Therefore, those domains should be the focus of repairing unfinished learning. And then point 3, all initial learning should begin conceptually, allowing students to build a concrete understanding of concepts and skills. This particular information is perception survey that was given to students, staff, and parents. They were all given the same questions, but at their level. Students were given a slightly different version than the adults, but the questions were essentially the same. So they were questioned on how familiar they were with SEC. Do they feel supported by the SEC teachers? Is there adequate access to the curriculum provided by the district? And then how do they feel about having 2 teachers in the classroom, and do the teachers communicate effectively with them? So everyone was asked the same questions. And as you look at those numbers, I just want you to just ponder what this means for our instruction. Okay, so at this time, you guys can just unmute so that we can just kind of have some open dialogue in terms using the Atlas protocol and give feedback. Let's just have an open discussion for probably about 10 minutes. It'll be fine. What do you see in terms of the data? Like, what are the cold hard facts that you see?
So there was a couple of things I'd like to talk about. One is on the demographics slide.
Okay, let me go back to that slide. Okay.
And upon looking this, the visual tells me that less than 3 co-taught classes is decreasing, and as well as more than 3 co-taught classes. Mm-hmm. But if those numbers were changed to percentages, I think it might flow a little better to show that actually less than 3 co-taught classes is increasing while more than 3 co-taught classes is decreasing.
Okay, so change instead of using just the hard number and the total number of students in the co-taught classes, put percent.
Use percentages. And maybe put the hard number in parentheses next to it.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Was there anything else? Oh, do we have any reasons behind why these numbers are changing in the way they're changing?
I think a lot of it has to do with attendance. We have a lot of students who have signed on, a lot of students that we're still searching for. So attendance is a big issue right now for us, and possibly because of remote learning and this COVID situation, we have a lot of students that we just are unable to make contact with for one reason or another.
And what is do you know the availability of co-taught classes? Are they less available than in the past or more available?
I it from year to year it changes. It depends on the number of students needing those classes. So every summer we look at the number of students needing the co-taught classes, and we gather all that data. And then we know that we can only have a particular number of students in a class. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's how we decide how many segments of that class we need for the school year.
All right.
Yeah. Any other questions or any other areas you guys want to go over with the data?
I would imagine that would be tricky this year, just being transparent. This is sports. I'm in the hallway
Yeah.
covering, so that's what you hear. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Um, because of the unique challenges that come with being virtual and the options for students to kind of change in real time. So essentially, from week to week, they can go from virtual to face to face.
Mm-hmm. And that is going to have an impact.
Yes, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
you won't have a captive in a co-taught classroom. If they're virtual, you don't necessarily have a captive audience. While they may be logged in, they may be distracted, or like
Mm-hmm.
not in a closed off environment
Mm-hmm.
where they could
So
focus.
yes, and that is one of the biggest challenges that we're having this year, because as we all know, we have kids sitting in the room, like Ms. Ford said, we have kids online. So anytime you have a co-taught classroom, both teachers are expected to give attention to both groups. And so we are kind of having an issue in terms of just allowing them the attention that they need to be focused in an online setting. And let's
Right.
let's face it, online is not for everyone. Some
It's
kids,
not.
notice they need to be face to face. They need to be in the classroom, and that's one of the things that we've been talking about with our SEC students.
Right.
Hmm. Anything else on this particular slide?
Not
Okay.
that I see glaring.
Okay, I'll just move on.
Well, I like the way you put the years from current to past. That's
Yes,
real
Yeah.
nice. I like the way you color coded them. Real good.
yes,
Easy to see.
yes. I don't know where all these 162 students went this year. So they could have went on to high school, but as the grades as the kids get into the higher grades, the numbers tend to decrease. So I don't know where the rest of those 30 students went this year. And that would be interesting to find out that, like, did they just move out of the area? Because we know we have a pretty transient population
Transient.
as
Right.
well.
Right.
That
Hmm.
that was another question I had. Did this demographic, is this for the whole school, or is this for a particular grade or a particular
These
subject?
these are all SEC students, only
Okay.
SEC students. Yeah,
Okay, so that might need to be identified in there.
yeah. Oh, okay. So I'll put that.
So you mean like add number of SEC students to the top, Miss Gage?
Yeah, yeah, just
Okay,
so if you're looking at this, who are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Right.
Is it a
Okay.
class?
Right.
okay,
It is a demographic, but it's the special education population within Paul the US.
okay. I got you. I'll make sure that I add that as well going forward as I update the information. All right, let's look at our ready read. Any questions or concerns on this? The one thing that I saw was that I think vocabulary was a big one here. Vocabulary, of course, if you don't have the basis of vocabulary and phonics, comprehension is going to suffer. And so that's one of the things. And then you have three kids here that are on grade one for instruction, the grade level equivalency in reading. And so what they're doing is they're going to, like I said, they're grouping them, and then they'll start to do whatever the activities are for those areas, like phonics. read alouds, pre-teaching academic vocabulary, and word parts. And so then you skip all the way down. You have phonics to fluency, oral reading, and phrase cue reading. And so I wonder what kind of challenges this will have in the classroom. Like in online and with us having students in the classroom, how can we manage all these different groups like this and all these different areas that need so much attention?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and are these oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Miss
No,
Shannon.
no, keep going. You're good.
And are these students who scored like at a grade 1, what did they score last year? How much of that is can be attributed to a lack of focus or
Right.
rushing through because we were virtual initially with the
Hmm.
diagnostic?
Right. Right.
Like like how really valid is the data, or did they show consistent deficits last year and just which since March they would have
Mhm.
shown a declination, but is it a gross declination from last year? Is it that's something to wonder too.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
and my question on this one is this one full classroom? Is this like what one teacher's trying to determine how to approach reading as far as their grade level uh, testing has indicated?
This is two classes at this time, and they chose the kids just based on this. There are other students, but all most of them are fifth grade to seventh grade. And so this is the focus group right here. So the kids are scattered across two different classrooms.
Okay, my other question would be, is this slide to show that the challenges that a teacher is experiencing within the classroom and how they are addressing those challenges by grouping the groups?
So basically, they are showing that they have to look at the data to see how they're going to help that student and what they need to focus on. And so by them doing groups 1, 2, and 3, they can just kind of focus in on an activity with the teachers. So for example, group 1 may have the special education teacher working with those students on some of these skills. Group 2 may have the general ed teacher working on them. Even though they're SEC students, they're still working on these items together in the classroom. And what they're trying to do is to find a good formula for meeting the needs of these students while we're in such tough times right now. And then group 3 may be an independent group or something they can work on while the teacher goes back and forth between them.
So that might be good to add to the slide, depending on your audience. It might be good to say, not only here's the data, but like here's one teacher's explanation or strategy for addressing these.
Okay.
And so that's just more clear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds good. All right, let's move over to math because I'm not going to go over the time.
Sorry.
So in terms of math, what do you guys see that's kind of going on here in terms of the data, like the big picture of what you see? What assumptions can we make about these particular students and their learning?
We do have some that have not completed the testing, so those would be unsure of where they fit in this data.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, and they didn't. I think 2 of the 3 didn't complete the read either. I
Okay.
already read.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. And I'm sure that it's because of the attendance.
Mm-hmm.
Almost positive. So the math coach just made a correlation between these students and their deficits to their reading levels. And that is absolutely true, that based on what they have to learn, reading word problems and things like that, if they're still having those phonics and comprehension issues, or even just vocabulary, they're going to have a hard time reading a math word problem because they just don't get how it fits together.
Right.
And I wonder what happened, right? Well, Shania, her Lexile um, was 208, and then Ibrahim's Lexile was 271. Jeremy was at 94. And I'm wondering, did they just did they take it serious, or did they just pick buddies?
Right. And if they're and we're that's a serious question because they weren't in the building.
Right.
Right.
So we didn't necessarily have a chance to build the stamina last year for a virtual environment, because you have to be pretty structured, almost intrinsically, I would say.
Yes.
Or either practice it consistently so that you build the norm. And I think what happened last year, it was pretty sudden, and we never really recovered.
Right.
Right. And all that lost time that we had, it's still having an impact, and it's
Yeah, and we never really taught its importance. I mean, we had a captive audience last year, so we were, they did what we asked them to do, but I don't know if without us, if they understood the why.
Right. Okay, so that's something that just going forward, just kind of looking at the implications of this on just teaching and assessment going forward, because if we just don't have good data on them, then
right.
How do you proceed? I guess there's more questions than answers.
Right, exactly.
Also, if we have a student with a known reading deficit and they also score low in the math, is there a way to have, and they're doing it virtually, is there a way that we could get a proctor in there and proctor the math?
I mean, it's a possibility. It couldn't help to add that to the list of suggestions in terms of what we can do.
Just to give a little extra insurance that they're actually following what's being asked. They know the directions, and
but
someone
I know that
oversees.
these particular students here took it from home. Like they didn't they didn't take it at the school. So like I guess our challenge is, how do we do that? How do we ensure? My suggestion was to ask for some software so that we can monitor what's on their screen. And I feel like that at this time is a necessary tool for our teachers, because they are home. They could be watching YouTube videos while we're trying to teach. But if we can see what's on that particular screen on the Fulton County laptop, then we may be able to circumvent some of those issues.
That's good.
Yeah.
And also from a parent perspective, because the parents, see the students logged in, so to speak. They see their computer up, but they really don't verify.
And they really think the child is on
working. Yeah, that's. I think
do.
I've run into that disconnect as well.
Right. So, okay, guys, I'm gonna move on.
Okay.
So those are the recommendations for there. Does anybody have any questions or concerns on this slide? This is just connected to just the math. Those students, these are some things that can help them to improve on their math scores.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'll move on. And this one, I wanted us to talk about 5 minutes, guys, tops. 5 minutes. This perception data. In terms of these questions, this really needs to be looked at as a big picture. And I would share this with all SEC teachers, whether co-taught or small group. And I think they need to see this, because this is how these people feel about the connection between the SEC department and them and their work. And so when I look at this, my concern with students being familiar with SEC is at 11%. And that is next to nothing in terms of what they know about their own learning. How can they take responsibility and understand the impact of what they need to do to move from one point to the next if they really don't understand the program that they're in? They just know that they're in special classes, but that is huge right there to be at 11% for this perception data.
I agree. I was looking at that, just kind of looking. That's very true. How do you even know what the goal is? You don't know where the goal post. Yeah.
Yes. And then looking at teachers communicating effectively, that was low across the board for students, staff, and parents. They just don't feel like the communication is where it needs to be. Anytime you have 13%, at least with the staff, that number should be tremendously higher than 26%, for teachers talking to each other. So we need to figure out where the disconnect is and improve upon those skills. And then even parents felt like the teachers weren't communicating effectively. What do you guys think?
I wonder how much of that has to do with the current times too. Um, because the information is coming so quickly, even down to scheduling, and like we're pivoting daily. So I'm wondering if how much of that affects the perception. Because we'll communicate one thing and then in 2 weeks communicate something else, and 2 weeks communicate something else. Indicative of where we are right now. I wonder if this were taken last year or pre-pandemic. Yeah.
Right.
What it would have been. I think that would have been a better picture.
Do
All
we have
things
the
being
date?
considered.
Do we have the date when this was taken?
The date when this one was taken? This
Or
data
range? Date
oh,
range?
oh, you know what? This has been happening since August, between August, September, and I just compiled the data probably 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would venture to say that the dynamic communication across the board would probably be looking like that, because also people are isolated. And so if you're not communicating via Teams, you're not, they're not having those hallway conversations like that, like or dropping by each other's rooms.
Right. Right. That, I mean, hey, strong possibility that that is having an impact on what we're doing. So
Yeah,
yes, I
everybody's
can go with
kind
that.
of just as I'm just wondering how much that has to do with it, because I can't say that I always feel connected. You know what I mean? It's
Right,
just,
right.
And I
Because
would agree. I feel like I am very overwhelmed with the
yeah,
amount of work that's current right now. And there's always that feeling that, yeah, I want to go call that one parent one more time, but trying to fit
yeah,
everything in.
exactly.
yeah.
And as the information is not static.
Right.
So the one, they would say, well, last month you guys were saying this, which is very valid. But
Right.
this month we've changed to that. We can even, get that down to even different schedules. We were on one schedule, and then our 10-14, we were on another schedule.
True.
And
That's true.
then how our teachers and parents and students communicating, there's email, but I mean, that doesn't really convey most
Right.
emotions and feelings. And
Right.
then access to a telephone is not something every teacher has in
Has
their
right.
That's
classroom.
true. That's true.
And we don't want to give out personal phone numbers. It just
No
makes there's some
gaps
roadblocks.
there. Yeah, for sure.
There's some
Sure.
roadblocks to clear communication.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Okay. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna move on to the next couple of slides so we can get
Yes,
on out
ma'am.
of here.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of our school process, the district this is their vision of what they want us to be able to do. Striving to embrace a progressive mindset, appreciating the successes and challenges of learning, basically having our students own a sense of self that will help them to be lifelong learners and be more confident in what they're doing. They're willing to take risk and embrace collaboration. And then hopefully our students will value integrity, respect, and responsibility. In terms of here in the school, I'm sure we embrace that same vision, but we kind of have our own thing going on as well. So our teachers and administrators are devoted to the success of every Paul D. West student. At every turn, we are preparing our students for success at the next level and working hard to get that done. All stakeholders are involved in the process of meeting the needs of students and families, and students are supported, should be supported at every step of the process. So this is just what we're striving to do, and this is basically our mindset and how we want things to flow in the school so that we are helping our students to be successful. My priority question for this school year is, how can effective co-teaching improve the academic success of exceptional students? And we're going to use this data that's highlighted on the screen. I already read in math, SDI, and read 180, as well as I should have added in that we'll be taking periodic surveys to get some more perception data to figure out kind of how people are feeling, how they're feeling about the work that we're doing, any suggestions that they may have to make things a little bit easier and more accommodating for them and our students. And then this is my continuous improvement cycle implementation plan. In terms of the district has had us complete all these modules during pre-summer. And so this was done in an effort to kind of get us ready to work in a synchronous and asynchronous environment. And so they did a really good job of trying to find models that would help us during this time. So they looked at synchronous and asynchronous world of IRR special education teachers, co-teaching virtually, building culture and collaboration, personalization of learning through Microsoft Teams, student engagement, assessment and feedback, and how to communicate effectively. In terms of a school, everything that's in the light green are items that our teachers engaged in so far this school year. So they had to do learning inventories on all special education students. They had to do specially designed instruction PLCs with Dr. Erskine, classroom visits by the SDI coach and myself. They have been uploading co-teaching videos for me to view and give feedback. Co-teaching roles and responsibility checklist. This is where they're sitting down with their co-teachers and deciding who's going to do what in the process of the day or the structure of their class. What is co-teaching training? And then collaboratively establishing a co-teaching goal. They had to do that as part of their SDI plan for this school year. What do they hope to accomplish by the end of this school year? And then they were given a walkthrough rubric so that, someone's not coming in cold trying to figure out what they're doing in their classrooms. They can kind of know, okay, if she comes in, she may be looking for one of these items on this list. So where do I want to be? Level 1, 2, 3 in the process, with level 3 being the best. And then the one that's bolded in November, we'll have another co-teaching and SDI training. Now that training will focus on not so much what co-teaching is or what does it mean to put them in particular groups, but this one will be modeling and demonstrating to them and showing them what should that conversation look like in the classroom between the co-teachers. What does it look like for them to meet and plan an assessment, meet and plan the lesson plan for that next week, those kind of things. And then reflecting on the lesson that they've taught and deciding on steps to move forward. So that is basically the end of what I need to present to you guys today. Do you guys have any questions or last comments to add on any of the last 3 slides that I shared with you?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay, okay. Ms. Gage?
The only thing I would say is that there looks like there's a lot of information on these last few slides. There is a lot of information, so I don't know if that's helpful.
This particular presentation is not for the teachers. This
Mhm.
particular presentation is just for my instructor and
Okay.
Mr. Gilliam to view so that he'll
Okay.
know kind of what I'm doing. So once
Right.
I'm in the presentation, we have a totally different setup for the training.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it was great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. You guys have the a valuable, peaceful rest of the day and a sleepy weekend.
Thank you. You too.
No. Okay.
Thank
Talk to you
you.
guys soon.
Thank you.